how it all went south.
Joe Passalaqua. Not a name you're likely familiar with, is it? I didn't think so. Most people probably aren't. But he was an Olympic hopeful, a bodybuilder, owner of a renowned center for youth tumbling and cheerleading for 30 years. Why wouldn't you know who he is?
Yeah, exactly.
His charm and dedication made the husband and father of three a beloved community figure. But behind that facade lie many dark secrets. Burglaries, home invasions, and steroid abuse were just the tip of the iceberg, as Joe Passalaqua is a self-professed hitman for none other than the Gambino crime family, and has confessed to over 100 murders for hire.
I'm excited about this. Anything with hitmen, mafia, mob.
Yeah, this one's good. Right up your alley.
Yeah, this is exciting.
Which is why I thought maybe you've heard of this guy.
Yeah.
You haven't.
I'm kind of pissed off that this isn't one of my episodes, by the way.
Well, we've all got to have a hitman story or two under our belt. By all rights, he should be in the Mobster Hall of Fame, but all is not what it seems with old Joey P, as I like to call him. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the life and crimes of one of the most controversial and questionable mobster hitmen you've never heard of. We'll figure out how he went from being a shining example of a community figure to being sentenced to decades in prison. Live from 800 East Studios here in Atlanta, Georgia, my name's Sean Kipe. That guy is Jason Hoke. This is how it all went south. Joe Passalaqua was raised in a 1960s middle-class Long Island suburb. His father was an exterminator who owned his own small business, his mother a Sunday school teacher, and he was a skinny runt of a kid that was often bullied, something that would push him to pursue weightlifting and eventually gymnastics. After seeing a competition on TV when he was in the 6th grade, he went full bore into the fitness and bodybuilding lifestyle, and by college was an Olympic hopeful on Temple University's gymnastics team, where he was a co-captain. He earned a scholarship to the school and eventually became a specialist on the rings. He could hold the Iron Cross steady and still longer than anyone in his district. You know what the Iron Cross is?
Yes.
Have you ever tried it? Like in school, high school or anything? Gym class?
Oh, I mean, I literally, my muscles went in as a kid. They didn't go out.
Concave chest?
Yeah, I was like the skinniest, scrawniest kid ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could barely climb the rope in gym class.
Oh my God, you were that kid.
Yeah.
It all makes sense now. It all makes sense now.
Yeah.
I figured you out, Jason Hoke. The Iron Cross, for people who don't know, look up a picture. We'll show one. It is, even for somebody completely physical fit, like I could not ever do it. It is so freaking difficult to hold your arms by the ring straight out and hold your body and hold it still. I mean, so this guy could do it. I mean, he was longer than anyone else in the entire district and for college. So when I say Olympic hopeful,
yeah.
This guy actually had some real skill.
And when you see someone do it, they just kind of, it's like organic to them. It's like, yep, okay, I'm going to hold it. How long you want me to hold this position, you know?
Yeah.
They take one arm off, have a cup of coffee.
Yeah. There is actually a guy who can do something like that with one arm. I saw online the other day. It was like holding his weight almost like a push-up, but with one arm.
Oh, this isn't like one of the guys that's spray painted silver in the. You know.
No. This was like a Shaolin monk kind of thing. Incredible. Anyway, Passalaq's Olympic dreams were cut short, however, when he broke his wrist during a double backflip. So he turned to coaching instead. If you can't do it, teach it. Right? Opening his own school, Flip Over Gymnastics in East Brunswick, New Jersey. The successful gym operated for nearly 3 decades, and he'd married one of the gymnastics instructors at the gym, Sherry, with whom he had 3 kids. He was well-known, well-liked, and respected in the community. A family man, someone who helped give local kids confidence and taught them about healthy lifestyle choices. I mean, this was a guy who, like, you were comfortable having your kids hang out with, and he was that guy in the community.
All-American guy, right?
Totally all-American guy. I mean, it really makes this whole rest of this story that much more bizarre, and unexpected for me anyway when I first learned about it. In 2007, at the onset of the recession, Passalaqua struggled to keep Flip over in business. It was getting tough to make rent payments on the building and to make payroll. Not only was the recession to blame, but also gymnastics was declining in popularity, and the birthday parties and private tumbling lessons he'd once relied on began to dry up. Something had to change, and change fast, or he'd lose the gym. And when was gymnastics? Was there ever like a moment? I feel like gymnastics is only ever really kind of popular right around the Olympics. Like when the Olympics are on TV, like gymnastics and people talk. The other 3 years in between, I never hear anybody talk about gymnastics.
Yeah, that's fair.
They
have like world championship type things, but unless you're like around that weekend, you might miss them.
Yeah, but I feel like every small gym owner, like gymnastics kids thing, like they probably get super busy around the time of the Olympics, and then 2 or 3 months later, it's like, what do you do to keep the lights on? Around this same time that he began struggling at the gym, at a New Jersey gym called Muscle Mill, Passalaqua met Raphael Denise, a muscle-bound 21-year-old used car salesman. Denise was a bit of a thug and was tied to a small crew of criminal weightlifters. True. It's funny, but true. And where have we heard this before?
I think we have, right?
We have, yeah.
I think, what is it about, they run in packs. Like there's organizations within the organizations of these criminal weightlifters.
Yeah, well, and what was the movie with The Rock and Mark Wahlberg, where it was based on a true story, and they were weightlifters who did this whole big thing and committed a murder and just knucklehead steroided out.
It's tough to sort out the knucklehead.
That it is. Denise mentioned that the owners of the dealership where he worked often cheated customers and felt they deserved to get robbed. Passalaqua agreed.
Wait, hold on. He felt they deserved to be robbed. He said that.
Yeah.
What is that? That's great.
They've got money. They're ripping off customers. They deserve to be robbed. That's the mentality we're working with. We just want to set that precedent right now. Like, this is the level of morality. So late one night, the crew, with Passalaqua joining in, broke into the car dealer's home by using a ladder balanced on the roof of his Hummer to reach a second floor window. They made out with a safe full of cash totaling $140,000. And Joey P's problems seemed to be over. Between November 2007 and June of 2009, Passalaqua and a rotating group of at least 8 other weightlifters committed at least a dozen burglaries. They targeted known drug dealers who they'd see at strip clubs, flashing cash around. With the employ of a dirty cop, they'd run the dealer's license plate, find out where he lived, and then steal money from the drug dealer's house. Brilliant plan, by the way, and safe. The oldest of the crew, Passalaqua, served as the getaway driver because they felt police were less likely to pull over a 55-year-old white guy. Passalaqua thought of himself less as a criminal and more of a Robin Hood character. He took on a new vigilante mentality and even wore a gold St. Michael pendant around his neck, St. Michael being considered the champion of justice. Where are you at in your thinking on this right now? Where is this going?
Well, I imagine like this really big boat of a car, and he's driving, and he's got like, when was this? What years were this?
2007, 8, 9.
Okay, well, like I was thinking maybe it was earlier. He's got this like big blonde mullet, and like
he's got a mullet, but it's not blonde,
and like Buttafuoco style Zuba pants and the whole deal.
100%.
You can't miss this guy.
American flag,
American Gladiators looking guy.
100%.
Yeah, and it. Yeah, for sure. That's kind of what I'm picturing in my head.
I'm surprised you haven't seen a picture of him because, he's Greek, I think. Maybe was he Greek? Italian, something. He's got that like flair of, he's got a little mix in there or something, but he had the little mullet and just, Zumba pants.
Yeah.
But the muscle pants that just, like Hulk Hogan,
Totally.
with a fanny pack with your steroids hit in it. And this guy was huge. I mean, like he was big. We'll put a picture up, but he was, competitive weightlifting. I mean, he was legitimately, he had the body for it. I mean, he looked like any of those other big weightlifting competitions. And steroids, this guy I read would use a 10 cc horse needle to inject steroids into, his hip and his ass cheek and, these different places. But I don't know how big a 10 cc needle is, but it sounds huge. It's not, I mean, it's a horse needle.
Yeah. And horse pills, horse needles, anytime. Yeah.
Anything meant to be used for a horse is big and probably not advised for human consumption. And some of the steroids and things that they were using were, him and these other guys were like horse grade. You know what I mean? Like, so you get the idea of how big this guy is and his friends. Slowly, the burglaries and home invasions escalated, and soon Passalaqua began to feel that Denise and the others were getting a little too brazen and reckless. The tipping point came when they assaulted a woman during one particular home invasion, dousing her with bleach in an attempt to destroy any trace of DNA evidence. I'm not sure that's how it works, but that's what happened, and he was not altogether happy with that. Passalaqua was against using unnecessary violence on what he considered to be an innocent bystander, but the other men didn't seem to care. Things got increasingly tense in the group when the men planned to rob a high-end steakhouse owned by a man named Chris Contos, a Greek-American who owned strip clubs and restaurants throughout the state. The steakhouse, called the Woodbridge, was where two of the thugs, working in this little group, used to work. Passalaqua wanted nothing to do with it, saying Contos was a regular businessman who hadn't done anything wrong. And you have like this, we've seen this so many times before with these kind of like knucklehead guys that get into the criminal life where they have that Robin Hood sort of mentality.
Yeah.
All the bad shit that you're doing, and you justify certain things in certain ways. Well, no, he's an innocent businessman, which is not even true in the first place. But it's like, that's your justification? Well, nah, we can rob this guy, but not that guy. He didn't cheat on his taxes. Hey.
And by the way, just visually, it's like, no, that pack of guys right there, they can't be the criminals. Look at them. Of course, it's obvious, right? Like they stick out like a sore thumb, and they're memorable.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't walk into a room with 6 other giant guys, and
like, damn,
people tend to notice that kind of thing.
Like, damn. 3 of the criminals wore the same Buttafuoco pants today.
I can't describe them, officer, but I just remember there being a lot of oil, and sweat, and spandex. Does that help? Yeah. Not long after this, where they have this conversation, and he's against going to rob this guy that owns the steakhouse. 2 masked men with guns zip-tied several employees at the steakhouse and held a gun to the head of Contos's 25-year-old son as he handed over about $150,000 in cash from the restaurant's safe. So they actually did go rob this place and made out with a pretty penny. When we come back, though, we're going to find out how this one robbery changed Joe Passalaqua's, Joey P's life forever. We'll be back. All right, we're back. And Jason, we've been talking about Joseph Passalaqua.
I like Joey P better.
Joey P, listening to this story, how could he have any other name,
Right.
This big muscle-bound criminal guy, gymnast, thief, thug. Joey P, eh? All right. Hey, he's got...
no, he's not. He's not Rodney Down.
No. Yeah, he's the Italian Rodney Dangerfield. It reminds me of that wrestler, though. Who was it that had the little curl, and he always had the toothpick, like old WWF days.
Oh, I should know this because I worked for them.
Did, yeah.
Not like Brutus Beefcake.
The Razor Ramon.
Razor Ramon, sure.
Yeah. It reminds me of that. Like, that's...
Nice.
Yeah. To the crew of thieving bodybuilders, Passalaqua had now become a liability. Worried he might flip on them or become an informant for police or feds, Denise decided they needed to take him out. But Passalaqua, either caught wind of this or just out of intuition, decided to act first by going to Contos, the guy the owner of the restaurant. Passalaqua asked Contos to meet him at a small diner off Route 1 in New Jersey, saying they had to meet alone, only communicate via written notes, and any cell phones had to be turned off to avoid eavesdropping. Joey P. told Contos that he knew who had recently robbed his restaurant and held his son at gunpoint. He said he would kill the three men he knew to be involved for $30,000. He'd planned to kill them anyway, so he thought he might as well have Contos pay for it. Pay him to do it.
I won't be here anywhere.
Not my words. That's Joey P's, hey, I was going to kill him anyway, so I figured I'd get this guy to pay me $30,000 to do it. Hey.
You want to hang out? I'll hang out.
Sound logic. He slid a piece of paper he just scribbled on across the table, and on it was written, 30 for the three. I need cash, half up front. When asking how long it would take to do it, Joey P said 2 weeks, depending on how fast he could get the down payment. Contos agreed to the deal, saying he would contact him soon to arrange the first installment. Little did either of these men know that a Middlesex County detective had contacted FBI agent Carrie Brzezinski, who'd been working violent crimes in New Jersey for more than 2 decades, suspecting that the Contos case, his restaurant, robbery, might be connected to a string of unsolved robberies and home invasions in the area, possibly with links to the mob. I knew you were probably waiting for where the mob comes into this, because it's
just hanging out in New Jersey, just waiting.
Well, yeah, if you're in New Jersey or New York, you throw a rock, you'll hit a mobster. You might not know it, but you probably will.
I wouldn't throw a rock at a mobster.
I'm just saying, if you threw a rock, you're going to hit somebody who's affiliated in some way, maybe? I don't know. Agent...
That's so stereotypical.
I'm just saying, it's New York, You got this is in the days of John Gotti and all these guys, like the new wave of 80s and 90s mobsters.
Totally get it. Totally.
A lot of them.
Yep.
They've cleaned it up since then. Way to go, New York. Agent Brzezinski reached out to Contos to ask him about the recent robbery, and at their first meeting, Chris Contos told Brzezinski about Passalaqqua's offer and agreed to cooperate with the feds, later recording every detail of the murder for hire. So the first time I just imagine this playing out. It's like, yeah, take him out. I'll get you the $30,000. And then an FBI agent knocks on the door. Is like, we'd like to ask you about that robbery that happened at your restaurant. He's like, the guy told me he killed these people. I'll cooperate. I'll record everything. I don't care. Give me a lie detector test. It just folds instantly. These are not professional gangsters, I don't think. At some point after this meeting between Contos and Passalaqua, Joey P said that told this guy he'd been a mob enforcer and hitman for 30 years. He claimed he even did a stint collecting debts for legendary mobster John Gotti, that he only targeted criminals, saying, quote, I only do things if I think it's right. He told Contos, I've turned away thousands of jobs. I have 103 of these things that I've done in my life. 103. It's got to be something personal like this, where somebody did something bad to somebody and the police can't help them. The police give people like me business because they're incompetent. And this is all recorded by Contos when they have these meetings.
Wow. 103 is very specific too. Like that is like, I'm keeping score on the wall. Like there's a little room where he's going in and like scratching out a little something on a piece of wood that says up to 103 now.
With all due respect, I would imagine if you've killed especially several people, you're gonna remember.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I would think you keep track of that. And I think too.
But does it ever get old? Like that's I'm up to 97.
But it's a hitman. You're getting paid for it. But I think a lot of these guys too keep track of this stuff, who paid them, what they were paid, and all this, because it's leverage if they ever get busted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that there's a little black book that you keep.
Like you have to keep track of.
Yeah. Because it's leverage that if you ever get busted, you can say, hey, I got information, give me a sweetheart of a deal.
We've heard about these little black books of detailed crimes being written down before, right?
Lots of times, yeah.
Yeah.
In September of 2009, on the day of his meeting with Contos, Joey P told his employees at the gym he'd be gone for a few days. He pulled into the parking lot of the Woodbridge Steakhouse, parked, and hopped into Contos' black BMW. Contos looked nervous, but he didn't think much of it given the circumstances. The guy's about to pay him money to, murder people. Rightfully, he should be nervous. Contos handed him an envelope containing $15,000 in cash, which he shoved into his pocket without counting. Before Passalaqua got out of the car, he noticed some sweat misting on Contos' face, and it stood out to him. What seemed like simple nerves now gave him a more ominous feeling. Just something's not right. It was like a little more than nerves. As soon as he stepped out of the car, a SWAT team swarmed him, throwing him to the ground to cuff him. Helicopters circling overhead.
Oh my God.
Now he looks up and sees FBI agent Brzezinski staring down at him. And my favorite thing of all with this whole arrest and everything, this is God's honest truth. Agent Brzezinski is staring down at him, and Passalaqua tries to play it cool, joking, "Where's Ashton Kutcher? Am I being punked?"
No.
Truth. Am I getting punked, huh? Well, you guys went all out with the helicopters and the real guns.
Let me see that money. Is that real money? You're serious. Wow.
Really happened. When we come back, I'll tell you what the FBI found out when looking into those claims made by Joey P. Regarding being a mob enforcer and hitman for 35 years with over 100 murders under his belt. We'll be back. Jay, what's your take on this story so far? You've heard Joseph Passalaqua, the most proficient mobster, hitman in recent history.
This claim that he's done. I don't really know actually where it goes from here, or what he's actually done versus what he said he's done. Maybe I'm just missing that, but I wonder if he really has taken thousands of calls and gotten all this money, or is it a lie? What's going on? I'm not sure.
Good questions all.
Okay, good. I'm not that far off then.
No, you're not at all.
Good.
You're not at all.
I know nothing about this. I would just, like I said, the number 103 feels very specific, both for a 100% truth teller, but maybe for a liar who, in the specifics, right, of that lie, you say numbers like 103. I'm just saying.
Say specificity.
I can't.
I know. You were going for it.
No, I backed off.
You backed out. This is going to be like one of those words you say enough times in a row, and then you forget that it's actually a real word, and you start questioning. I did that with spaghetti one time when I was younger.
Yeah.
I said spaghetti like 40 times in a row, and then I was like, is that a real word, or did I just make that up? And I mean, like, legitimately going, wait a minute. Yeah.
You were kind of a weird kid, though.
I was totally a weird kid. I used to get into the refrigerator and eat like mustard and the Worcester sauce and like weird shit. Passalaqua was federally charged with one count of a Hobbs Act violation in connection with a murder for hire plot. And the Hobbs Act, I had to look up because I had no idea what that was. A federal law that prohibits robbery or extortion that affects interstate commerce or conspiring to do so. He pled guilty to one count of conspiracy to interfere with commerce by threat or violence for his role in 9 burglaries and 1 armed robbery, and was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Raphael Denise and other crew members are serving similar time. Then you've got the FBI while he's in prison, and when he's in this whole questioning thing going, about all those claims you made, and this lead agent, Brzezinski, has been, apparently somebody who was heavily involved in these kinds of cases for, like 2 decades. So she was in particular very interested. They begin interviewing Joey P. about his claim of being a mob hitman, even working at times for John Gotti. Despite the elaborate details of his recollections and being caught on tape boasting about more than 100 killings, the FBI found nothing to tie Passalaqua to past murders or the mafia. But he still insists he was not lying. He said he made his mob connection through, and to your point you just made a second ago, was he had some specifics.
Yeah.
Even though the FBI has now said we've never heard of it, we've never heard of this guy. And by that point, John Gotti, I think was arrested and in prison. They had dug into that guy's life so deep they knew everything about him. They felt. And they've never heard of Joe Passalaqua.
Imagine this. Really, I did kill all these people. Really, please.
Yeah.
I'm going to jail for 35 years, but I really did all these other really bad things. Please, let me tell you about this. Right?
Well, yeah, and we'll get into that because that's a good point.
I'm going to get upset because you don't believe that I whacked all these guys.
I don't think he got upset. He was just adamant that, like, because he had already made the claims to this guy. It was recorded. So it's not like he came out and was like, oh, hey, by the way, look at all these other things I've done.
Wow.
I mean, it was like, you're on tape saying this shit. Tell us more.
Yeah.
Because
they're probably thinking, with a Gotti or some of these other guys, this is the perfect kind of person or informant later on that could round up everyone for RICO charges. And, this is how, and talking about that FBI agent, she's got her eyes on, connecting all the dots here to be able to take that to, attorney generals or whatever, to be able to do a big slam dunk RICO case. Because these things take years and
they're huge.
You find your ace in the hole like Joey P, right? This is it. The star witness, if you will.
Well, he said he made his mob connection through working on charitable causes for disadvantaged kids with the owners of a number of Italian restaurants around the state, which I would assume really is New York and Jersey. According to Joey P., one restaurateur in particular, took an interest in his physique and his martial arts skills. In 1987, during a Republican fundraising launch, Passalaqua says the restaurateur, who was later indicted as part of an alleged drug-dealing operation run by the Nicodemo Scarfo organized crime family, told him there was someone he should meet. So that actually, there's legitimacy to this. He gave a name, and that guy was indicted as part of this. Joey says it ended up being the head of the Gambino crime family, John Gotti. He says he met Gotti at a social club in New York's Little Italy, where Gotti told him he needed someone to, quote, collect money. Passalaqua says, recalls, I'd have to use brutal force, which I had no problem with at that time in my life. If he failed, Gotti told him, he'd pay for it with his life. He says he became a made man in the presence of Gotti and Sammy the Bull Gravano. Gotti then gave him the nickname Angel, which in his mind helped rationalize his job. Going after mobsters and criminals, bad guys, that Robin Hood mentality.
Yep.
Looking back on this time of my life, Passalaqua says, I had a warped sense of morality. So that's specific. And I mean, these are just kind of highlights of this, but he's got a very specific story.
That name Angel, like I can see like that being something that would embolden someone to be like, I am on this team and this is my mission. And this is what I should do. And by the way, when I kill someone, I don't feel so bad about it.
Right. Well, and he goes further with his story. He told stories of stalking mansions in night vision goggles and pummeling the coke-snorting debtors inside, protecting Gotti during high-profile meetings with cartels, even watching a friend take a bullet to the head. At night, he says, he'd be out in the city as Angel, living the devil-may-care mobster life, complete with strippers and thugs, then racing home to beat the sunrise in his red Lotus. When he arrived at the gym in the morning, he would trade his black Versace suit for baggy sweatpants and a red flip-over muscle shirt, where he was once again just Coach Joe.
Wow.
Yeah, this whole double life. While the FBI and many others questioned his stories, there were actually people who seemed to attest to that. One former trainer at the gym said he and Joe were once at a diner in New Jersey when none other than Gotti himself approached his boss outside. Another said cops showed up at the gym one time looking for guns. And Joey's son, also named Joey, says that his dad had a huge safe full of guns in the basement, the size of a refrigerator, and that he competed in underground cage fighting matches, which he videotaped and proudly showed to his son. There was also the fact that the lifestyle Passalaqua and his family lived far exceeded that of someone owning a small youth gym. According to a Rolling Stone article, he had bought a sprawling 2-story house on a manicured cul-de-sac and collected a fleet of exotic sports cars, Lotuses, high-end Mercedes, Hummers. He installed an elaborate security system with motion detectors around the house and glaring spotlights all over the yard. So you got to wonder where, all of a sudden, you start to think this guy's ridiculous. He's so full of shit. Then you start to hear this other stuff where it's like he was struggling to make the rent and pay, and make his payroll. All of a sudden now he's buying this really nice house.
Cash business.
Yep. You've got a Lotus, and Lotus in the late 80s was on par. And I know this is, we're into the 2000 stuff, but I mean, that was on par for a long time with Lamborghini and Ferrari, especially in the late 80s.
Yeah. And there was a type that drove it too.
Sure, they weren't cheap.
Yeah.
Which is odd though, because Lotuses are really small cars, and you just see like the big guy. This was the largest car I could afford.
I got one without a top on, so
the head sticking out the top.
It sucks in the winter. No four-wheel drive either.
Yeah, but federal agents and former mobsters alike say there is no evidence to support his alleged ties to the Gambino family, although Joey P says that's exactly the way it was supposed to be. Gotti couldn't trust the people around him at the time, and I was supposed to be someone no one really knew about, a phantom.
So that actually sounds believable.
Yeah.
Like sometimes here's the whole group, here's my inner circle of made men, for example, but like as the leader, I still have my own defenses, right? A couple, like one or two people that no one knows about. Like I might believe that.
There's a lot of other things that I didn't include in this that I read about, just things from his son. There were stories like his son said one time, and of course his son's name is Joey too, right?
Yeah.
Hey, little Joey. Yeah, Dad.
Yeah, Anthony Jr.
Yeah, it's Tony Jr. But his son said that, he remembers being on the highway one time or on the road, and somebody cut him off, and his dad just like pulled the Hummer over in front, in front of him, cut him off, and
rage
gets out of the car.
Yeah.
Just total rage mode, and but he had that mentality of and seeing your dad for the first time like this, that wow, yeah, he's got a bravado about him. He's got this mentality of you're not gonna F with me. I know people, and he just had, and there were a lot of others, people that worked for him at the gym, were saying they suspected. There was a story I read about one of the employees' daughter was raped, and she was crying about it and at the gym when she found out, and straight up, Joey P was like, "Want me to take care of him?" And she gave a statement later to the media, that she said, I knew exactly what he was talking about. They had enough intuition, these people around him, these close people, to know that he's into some stuff I don't want to know about it. I'm not going to ask. So I don't know. What do you think? I mean, do you think this guy's full of shit, or is he literally one of the most successful hitmen in mob history, if that's true?
I'm not sure, but he feels like a man that walks around with a lot of confidence of who he is, and whatever comes out of his mouth, true or false, is true in his mind.
Sure, he's going to stand by it.
He's going to stand by it, and he doesn't care what anyone else thinks. And I think he likes to be the ruling the roost of his neighborhood, and he wants everyone to know where he stands on everything, right? He is that guy. I would imagine that he could have probably gotten that money in so many different ways without having to make any hits. So, restaurant back jobs and taking care of people, and that may be his facade to make it feel a little bit more glamorous than doing something just on the side or whatever. So I don't know, but I would probably tilt in the direction of not believing him.
Yeah. At least that a lot of it is. I'm probably with you there.
I bet you he met John Gotti though. I believe that he met John Gotti.
He fabricated, and
it turned into something.
Yeah.
A bigger story in his own mind, but then the story started to come out, and it got bigger than what it really was. That's what I would imagine.
And that's he was married a couple times, and some of the women that he was even married to also said that kind of same thing, that he likes to think of himself as this big guy. He wants to be the guy, and the guy that has the stories. He's important. So that makes sense to me. He's still in prison in Maryland, actually, of all places, and still stands by his story that he was true, that he was telling the truth. That's all for this episode of How It All Went South. I'm Sean Kipe, and that's Jason Hoke here in Atlanta, Georgia at 800 East Studios. We'll see you next time.